Welcome back to another exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV. I'm your host, Gary Malewski, and the publisher of Cyber Defense Magazine. Now, I have brought into the hot seat today a very special person. He's got another cool title. He may have to say it for me once or twice. But Max Heinemeyer has come to us, and you are the director of?
Threat hunting.
Threat hunting. Very cool title. Max is the director of threat hunting at DarkTrace. DarkTrace is a market leader. I've seen them get boxes out there in places you would never expected where everyone said, I'm secure, but I'll try them out with this proof of value. I think they're the first to do it in our industry. And in such a short period of time, DarkTrace has gone to nearly a $2 billion valuation. So Max, welcome.
Thank you very much, Gary. Pleasure to be here.
So tell us, in this threat hunting role, what are you doing? What are you seeing? And how does DarkTrace go from a startup to an explosive growth where you are today?
Absolutely. I've been with DarkTrace for 3 years, almost to the day, and I've seen them grow from 100 employees to now almost 1,000. So it's been a rocket ship throughout the whole journey. And in my role, I do many different things. I'm mainly heading up a team of 30 threat hunters, analysts in Cambridge in the UK. Mm-hmm. So I'm mentoring them, I'm teaching them, I'm training them, and believe me, I love every second of it. It's just amazing. I've got the privilege to see most of the attacks that hit DarkTrace customers, most of the intrusion attempts, zero-day malware where there's no signatures for it, there's no blacklisted IPs or domains. And I see my guys grow from being very early adopters of new IT security products like DarkTrace to being stellar world-class threat hunters. I often also get wheeled out to customers in proof of values, like you just described, to show the customers the power of DarkTrace in our 30-day trials and show them what's lurking in their environments and the threats we weren't aware of.
So let's describe a proof of value, because there aren't a lot of companies who thought about deploying their technology this way. You have a box, an appliance, or a virtual machine solution.
Correct.
You bring it to the client. Let's just say it's a large bank. They say, hey, we think we're secure. We've got the latest firewall. It's app layer. We're doing this and that and the other thing. But sure, we'll try you out. Are you inline or are you out of band?
We're out of band.
So you can't take the network down?
We can't take the network down. That's correct. And a lot of our success is based on the proof of value because it's such a streamlined process. We can just wheel in there, we can talk to a customer, and even if they're skeptical, they say, we've heard about you guys, we're not quite convinced. We can always say with a very strong confidence, well, just get our box in, either physical or virtual box, plug us in. It needs just 5 to 7 business days to start understanding the network. So what we call build the pattern of life for every single device, not based on any other environments we've seen, but based on that individual network. So we don't take any training data from other environments. We learn every time anew from every environment we see, which is incredibly important if you think about classified networks, about SCADA and ICS environments. So we don't share any data. All things stay on premise or in the cloud, in the private cloud, or wherever the customer data resides. And then we go from there.
This map of the network topology is encrypted? The storage of it?
Yeah.
In other words, if someone trying to hack into DarkTrace and say, oh, I want to see that network, they're not going to get it.
No, of course not. So I myself penetration testing DarkTrace all the time. I've got a team of a few people who do that. And we have customers who are trying to do that all the time, of course. And we've got such a broad outreach, 2,500 customers and growing every day. So we see attacks hitting DarkTrace appliances every day, but there's no success so far in getting in.
So we're doing our proof of value. We put the box on the network. It's not in line. It's maybe near the router or firewall.
Exactly. We want to be placed, sorry to interrupt you, just to get a bit of color into it. We want to be placed at a very neuralgic point. We want to be at the core switch or core switches, but in the proof of concept, it's all about easy deployment. We literally rock up, plug the box in, it auto-configures itself. It just takes an hour, then it sits there and learns.
On a network tap or span port?
Tap, span, mirror, or virtual span, as easy as that. So you don't need to deploy any agents, there's no endpoint agents, there's no log collectors, there's no scanning. It's literally just go to a tap port or a span port, plug it in, and it starts learning.
If I have 10 VLANs or 100 or 1,000, will you kind of see that in the topology data you're collecting?
Yeah.
So you'll know this MAC address is probably, or it is a Windows computer based on its behavior. It's at this location, it's at this switch, it's out here.
You could give the pitch.
Basically. Okay, great. Well, I love what you do. And now you have that intel. So you've got asset intel. So you've got visibility into the intranet.
Correct.
Or the corporate network.
Correct.
What's going on? An employee clicks a link. They've been trained to not phish, but it says you just won the lottery and you can quit your job today. Click here. So they accidentally click it. They get infected with a zero-day, remote access Trojan. The phishing attacks are getting smarter and smarter. You may know more about this than me, but they're even compartmentalized where I'll send you a text-only email. Are you in the office right now, John? Oh yeah, I'm in the office. Great. Hey, are you going to go to that meeting? Yeah, the meeting's at 2. And now I have intel on you. Then I'm going to phish you 5 minutes or 10 minutes after the meeting or before the meeting. Hey, don't forget, bring this file to the meeting. Click, and they get infected. You see these patterns of behavior?
Absolutely. So DarkTrace started on the network, as we just discussed, but we've just released DarkTrace email, anti-GNI email, to spot everything email-based. And we see exactly what we've been describing. Because email is such a nice vector of attack for the attackers. It's easy, it's low risk. You don't have to have a month-long network intrusion. You just send the spearfish, right? And we see exactly what you described. We see that the attackers establish trust first, just send a legitimate email and say, hey, I've seen a website. Can we share some marketing material? Can we get in touch? I'm interested in the sales pitch. A few normal emails going back and forth. And then after the first or fifth email, we see that there's a phishing link or there's an attachment, a VBA macro-enabled Word document, things like that.
Okay, let's look at 3 breaches. One of them really, in England, as you know, NHS, the WannaCry. I thought that was a ridiculous breach because it's the SMB1 protocol. Why are they running it? Could you tell a client after their 30-day trial, oh, by the way, you have 32 computers, or in their case, 1,400 running a protocol that's at super high risk?
Absolutely. This is what we do all the time. So, of course, when we plug this DarkTrace in, we see sometimes there's a botnet, there's a remote access Trojan going on, there's an insider who's uploading data to his private network. But in many cases, we see cyber hygiene issues. So we see that there's 5 out of 500 devices that behave slightly weird. They make SMB1 connections to the internet, which nobody else does. They make repeated connections to beaconing, and there's loads of these subtle indicators. We actually saw WannaCry live when it broke out, and I was one of the first responders, and it was an impressive feast for us, because obviously bad for the whole industry, but we didn't need to patch any signatures in. We didn't need any hot patches for, the latest software upgrade when WannaCry hit. We could sit back and ensure our customers, you don't need to do anything. We spotted it live on the wire. We even had a few customers who run anti-GNI. So we discussed we do passive monitoring on tap and mirror ports, but we can also autonomously respond.
How do you autonomously respond? This sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's incredible. So we use the same DarkTrace appliance, which sits out of band, but it can have another port which can inject TCP resets and or interact with the network access controls. And here's the brilliant part, if I can just talk for another 30 seconds about
Absolutely. I mean, I know where you're going. This is exciting.
It's very exciting.
Instant isolation and quarantine.
That's it, but not just isolation. So if people hear the pitch I'm just giving, they think old school IDS, IPS, quarantine low network. Nobody these days runs an IPS in active mode, ever. I've never seen that, and I've talked to probably 400 customers in the last 3 years. I've never seen that. So what we actually do is DarkTrace throws the same alerts and says somebody downloads a weird executable from a rare domain, so he might got phished, click the link, then there's beaconing starting to a rare website or an unusual domain, then there's internal scanning, what the device never does. So lots of these anomalies, right? So DarkTrace anti-GNI sees that, there's a download of a piece of malware potentially, and then it says, well, we take that device and we're gonna enforce normal. What does that mean? It took me a minute to understand that myself. So it means DarkTrace knows what normal behavior constitutes for every single device, right? So when anomalies occur that look like a cyber attack, anti-GNI is going to enforce that normal. The device is going to be put in the box of known good behavior. So let's revisit just the attack I described. The initial piece of malware gets downloaded. Then anti-GNI says, that's slightly odd, we better take a look at something. And the beaconing tries to start. Anti-GNI says, well, the beaconing's out of place. We've never seen that before, so that's going to be isolated based on the port and the single connection. Then the scanning tries to start for lateral movement. That's going to be stopped because that device never scans, and certainly not these destinations.
However, is this an agent?
It's not an agent. It's not an agent. It's
Agentless.
Agentless.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the interesting part is the user that might have gotten infected hasn't noticed that yet, right? Because it's stealthy malware. But he can still continue to go to his normal email server. He can go to the SMB shares he always goes to.
So he's productive.
He's productive. He
You
doesn't get
have
interrupted.
partially quarantined a computer and isolated the area of risk, the dirty hygiene.
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm going to put a Band-Aid on you temporarily.
Exactly.
You're not going to bleed anymore, but
Exactly.
we're going to deal with it when we can, but you can still be
Correct.
productive.
And at the same time, a high-level alert is fired to the security team, whoever that might be, internal MSSP or whatever, so they can catch up and grab the device and talk to the user. So it's not about isolating everything with fire everywhere, it's about surgical responses.
That's great. Surgical responses with DarkTrace. Does DarkTrace replace my SIEM and my SOAR solution? Is it all one box and one dashboard and I'm all set? And why am I investing in other things that are doing partial? Or do you also integrate with those? Like, where do you play in that space?
We're complementary, but we do have customers who replace their IDS and IPS sometimes because they say nobody looks at the things anyway. We just have it for historical reasons. Plus, the prevalence of exploits has decreased over time. Right? People these days use fileless malware, phishing. There's still high-level exploits, but if you look back 10 years, exploits were much more common than these days. Use active intrusions. Other customers replace their SIM. However, it always depends on the customer, right? Because what we want to do, security monitoring. But we can do this via three main pillars: log data, SIM solutions, endpoint data, which could be EDR solutions, and all network data. And it always depends on the environment. And if a lot of our customers have old school SIMs, which have been around there forever and promise to do real-time detection of bad, but in reality, the security team just gets swamped by false positives, then they plug in DarkTrace and they have 5 high-level alerts in 2 weeks and they're all spot on. It's an easy decision to make. However, there can be compliance reasons and legal reasons to keep a SIM for long-term data storage, for example. But if it's just about finding evil, as it happens, DarkTrace is a perfect way to go.
This is a great interview. You've made it through the hot seat. What would be kind of a closing point you want to share, and maybe a little bit of the vision of where DarkTrace is going?
We're still going full throttle, full steam ahead. So we're getting customers left and right. I've been in back-to-back meetings for the last 3 days, and it's been incredibly interesting talking to high-profile people. And we're just developing new ways of patching visibility holes. So we started on the network. Now the cloud is no problem at all. We can cover virtual environments. Now we just released anti-GNI email, so to get the full visibility on the email. So we don't just say, okay, it's a link coming in, but we look at patterns of behavior. How often do you talk to me by email? Do you talk to multiple people normally, or is it a weird broadcast? Do you upload data? All the normal DarkTrace stuff applied to email. We also cover software as a service environments when there's no network at all, right? Salesforce, Office 365, these things. So we try to patch these visibility gaps now, and we get loads of feature requests from customers everywhere. So we're very customer driven. So we're going to see where this ends up.
That's great. And how quick can we deploy? You said it's a 30-day trial. It sounds to me like after the 30 days, you're done, you're deployed. Mm-hmm. And you don't take that back saying your eval's done and I'll wipe the data. You say, welcome aboard, customer.
Yeah, in almost every case, we do that, correct.
That's awesome. Max, thanks for the interview. This was wonderful.
Thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate it.
So folks, you're going to learn more about DarkTrace with their industrial stuff too, which is really exciting. Email protection. And by going to darktrace.com, learn more about their company, check them out, and do a proof of value and see if what we talked about is true, which I believe 100% it is. And then come back next time for an exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV. Thank you.